state, just as my partner Kenny Sneed did, Article 1, Section 10, Clause 4 of the Constitution. No state shall, without the consent of Congress, lay any duty of tonnage, keep troops, or ships of war in time of peace, enter into any agreement or compact with another state or with foreign power, or engage in war, unless actually invaded, or in such imminent danger as will not admit of delay. The U.S. does not have the power to just go to other countries with force without cause. Preemptive war is considered to be the taking of military action by the U.S. against another nation so as to prevent or mitigate a presumed imminent military attack or use of force by the nation against the U.S. The only time the U.S. engaged in preemptive war was prior to the 2003 start of the Iraq War was the Spanish-American War of 1898. The U.S. did this to grant Cuba political independence. The U.S. military actions against Spain were based on special U.S. foreign policy considerations that occurred after a war was formally declared and cannot be fairly characterized as preemptive in nature. A time when preemptive war was considered, but not used, was in the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962. John F. Kennedy was president and wanted to resolve the matter diplomatically. He could have used airstrikes to destroy the missile sites, but instead he did not use force and utilized a U.S. naval quarantine of the island to prevent additional shipments of weapons from the Soviet Union. In the end, the crisis was resolved peacefully. Just think, if John F. Kennedy has used force, then that would be another war with more money and men lost. If we, the United States, keep using force, then it will cost people their lives and money. Here are some statistics showing how much has been lost in the war in Iraq. Of the $3 trillion spent in the war on Iraq, the U.S. has lost $9 billion or more of taxpayers' money. They have lost $549.7 million in parts and $190,000 in guns shipped in 2004, and who knows how much since then. The money that has been wasted in Iraq is $10 or more billion. The cost of deploying a soldier to Iraq is $390,000 for 1 year. Just think of all the wars we have had and how much money war has been spent on them. Do you really want to keep going to war and spending more money? The government keeps asking for additional money for war. In my opinion, if we keep giving it to them, then the economy will go into another depression. Nothing in the world is free. The use of force in the world is far from free. The Iraq War has cost so much money, and yet it is a failure. Iraq is the second longest war in U.S. history after Vietnam, and the second most costly, with World War II in the first. This does not help the U.S. because it has a massive deficit. The U.S. keeps borrowing more and more money. All of the spending on all wars, not just the Iraq War, will not let us tackle other problems such as health care, building schools, and repairing roads. Our resources, both financial and human, could be put to better use than on a preemptive war. A majority of people believe that the war in Afghanistan is going badly, and approval of the administration's handling of Afghanistan has declined. Public opinion in the U.S. is now much less favorably disposed than it was before. As of August 23, 2010, there are 49,700 American troops still in Iraq. All other nations have withdrawn troops. The casualties of American troops in Iraq is 4,470 people. 54% of these people are under the age of 25. The number of wounded soldiers is 31,926 people. 20% of these soldiers have either serious brain or spinal injury. 30% develop mental health problems within 3 to 4 months. There have been 234 instances in the U.S. that has used force in the world. Only 5 of those were declared real wars. Those 5 wars were the War of 1812, Mexican War of 1846, Spanish-American War of 1898, World War I in 1917, and World War II in 1941. The rest of the wars were undeclared wars. Some of those include the First Barbary War of 1801, Korean War of 1950, Vietnam War of 1964, and many more prior to the Iraq and Afghanistan War. As proof of the cost of war, let's look at the cost of some of these wars. The War of 1812, Mexican War, and Spanish-American War altogether had 17,989 deaths and cost $444 million. World War II and World War III altogether had 521,915 deaths and cost $316 billion. Korean War and Vietnam War altogether had 112,394 deaths and cost $141 billion. The Iraq War had 4,470 deaths and cost $3 trillion. The total cost of all the wars in lives is 656,788 deaths and cost $3,457,444,000,000. All of those soldiers lost their lives, and not all of the wars were won, and also cost billions of dollars. Now to the Bush Doctrine. The Bush Doctrine was a radical break from previous national security strategies and fundamentally changed the way the U.S. acts to the world. For almost 50 years following the end of World War II and beginning of the Cold War, U.S. foreign policy rested on concepts of deterrence and containment. Even after the Cold War, George H.W. Bush and Bill Clinton still used the U.S. foreign policy. When George W. Bush became president, he made the Bush Doctrine. He had 3 key points in his Bush Doctrine. 1. A doctrine of unrivaled military supremacy. 2. The concept of preemptive and preventive war. And 3. A willingness to act unilaterally if multilateral cooperation cannot be achieved. The U.S. defense budgets will be greater than the rest of the countries of the world combined. The preemptive war will probably encourage proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, increasing the likelihood of regional conflicts. A quote from Brent Scowcroft, a security advisor who served under George H.W. Bush, "This tends to leave the door open to others who want to claim the same right. By making it public, we also tend to add to the world's perception that we are arrogant and unilateral." Now, do you really want to be known as arrogant? Because I certainly don't. The Bush Doctrine asserts to prevent other countries from passing or being equal with the U.S., which encourages nations to band against the U.S. Both opponents and proponents of the Bush Doctrine agree that it is the most radical change in U.S. foreign policy in more than 50 years and led to the first truly preemptive war in history. Don't you think that it's bad if Bush's proponents thought this was a radical change? I do. The Bush Doctrine and the use of preemptive war antagonized other countries. Do you, as an American, want to be known as a bully? I don't think so. The financial burden and the human toll on a preemptive war is something I do not want to deal with. That is why we should get rid of preemptive war. I'm Healy Robertson, and I'm for the opposition.